Hey everyone, welcome back. In today's video, I'm finally going to plant my new rabbiteye blueberry bushes. So I'm going to tell you what kind of soil I'm going to use and how we're going to go about planting them. So let's get gardening. Well, here we are in our garden. I'm getting ready to plant our new rabbiteye blueberry bushes. So I have 4 different varieties of rabbiteye. I have Climax, Premier, Brightwell, and Tiff Blue, and these will all cross-pollinate with each other. Behind me, I have our high bush blueberries, which in an earlier video I talked about the difference between high bush and rabbiteyes. So check that out if you're interested in learning more about those. So for the blueberries that I'm going to plant today, we dug about 12 inches into the ground and put 2x8 boards around that to create a nice little raised planter for the bushes. And the reason why we create a separate planter box for them is that blueberries need acidic soil, so we wanted to make a separate area for them that'd be easier for us to maintain the soil acidity and to amend it if we need to. So blueberries have pretty shallow roots, so we didn't need to dig down super deep, which is why we only dug 12 inches into the ground. And then the game plan for today is that we're gonna backfill the hole that we dug with just our normal garden soil. Now on top of that, I'm gonna add some peat moss, which is acidic, and then I'm gonna add some soil acidifier and fertilizer for acidic plants. And the last thing on top of that, we're gonna finish it off with some pine bark mulch, which is also a little bit acidic, so that should help the blueberries. So in general, blueberries need a soil acidity between 4.5 to 5.5 pH. So if you're within that range, your blueberries should be good to go. Otherwise, if you're not within that range, then they could die, or they won't produce very many blueberries, or they just won't look very good. So it's really important to get that right. Otherwise, they're really easy plants to take care of and maintain. So I'm really excited to get started. And then, lastly, if you're wondering why I have so many blueberry bushes, because in total we have 6, it's because we had these 2 high bush last year, which I loved and were really great, but we had a really big issue with birds eating the berries, and I looked into a lot of different ways to keep birds away from eating the berries, and really the consensus was that you need to plant more bushes so that the birds have enough to eat and you have enough to eat. So I figured that was probably a good compromise. I don't necessarily want to keep birds out of the garden. I like seeing them, and they're pretty and have, they're nice songbirds, so there's not really anything wrong with them. So I figured, why not have more? And they're fun to plant and they're really nice. I love blueberries, so what could go wrong? So that's why we have so many. Of course, if you have a small space, you don't need as many as I do, but we have plenty of room here, so you can have more. So let's get started on getting those blueberries in the ground. So for the soil portion for the blueberry boxes, we decided to buy in bulk because it saves us a little bit of money and it's less effort for us to go into the hardware store and pick up multiple bags of soil. So this works out. It's a really great solution if you need more soil than just a few bags at the hardware store. Otherwise, if you don't have as much space as us, or if you just have a small garden box, then going to the hardware store and picking up soil will be just fine. So when we put the soil in the garden box, Jay's on the tractor and he's dumping the soil in here. And then I've got our pitchfork and our trusty, rusty rake here. And I'm going through and leveling out the soil so he can keep putting it on top. At the end, we're gonna tamp all the soil down because we've had an issue with our previous boxes where the soil gets compacted and then we have a whole bunch of gap on the top. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Well, we finished backfilling our garden box with our soil, so it's time to add the peat moss. So for the peat moss, we ended up going to Lowe's and buying this peat moss there. It wasn't too expensive. We got 4 bags to put on top. And just so you're wondering why we filled it up pretty high is that we had an issue with the other boxes of the soil settling. So we're anticipating that happening. So we filled it up quite a bit so that in a year from now, it won't be settled so far down where there's a huge gap between the top board and where the soil is. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up those bags and start adding peat moss to our soil. We added our peat moss to the soil, and I've never used peat moss before, but it's really nice. It's really fluffy and light. I think the blueberries are gonna love being in this peat moss. So we mixed it in a little bit with the soil underneath the peat moss, so it should be good to go now. What we're gonna do is space the blueberry plants out. We want them to be about 4 feet apart. So we're gonna get ready to do that and get ready to dig a hole to plant them in the ground. We've measured front to back and side to side so that the plants are perfectly in the center of the box. We've already done these two and planted them, and they look really good. So we're gonna get started with this one next. So what we're gonna do is dig a hole about twice the size as the plant, and then put a cup of fertilizer in the soil, mix it in, plant the plant, and then build a berm around it so it's able to capture some water while it's still growing. So for the fertilizer, I'm using this Hollytone Espoma fertilizer. It's for organic gardening and for acid-loving plants, so this will be perfect for the blueberries. I'm going to use a cup of this fertilizer in the hole, so it'll be good to go. We have our hole dug, so now we're going to test out our plant. Can you put our little blueberry plant in there, see what it looks like?
Too deep.
It's a little bit deep, so we're going to backfill it. I'm going to add a cup of my fertilizer, and then we'll get ready to plant it. We have our blueberry plant planted in the ground now, so we're going to make a little berm for it. And voila, here's the finished product. We're going to do our last blueberry, which will be really quick because it's nice and small, and then we'll get ready to add some mulch. So last step, we're going to add our pine bark mulch. So I got this pine bark mulch. It's locally produced here in our area, so this is going to be really nice. I have it on their other blueberries and they seem to really like it. So I'm going to spread this in a layer on top of the blueberries and we'll be all good to go. Here's the finished product. I think it turned out really good. I'm super happy with how these boxes turned out. Of course, the pine bark mulch looks really nice, and then these are going to fill up really nicely. So these will get really big and eventually take up all this space. Right now there's a lot of wasted space because they're not very big. So I need to figure out if there's some sort of vegetable or flower I can plant in the meantime in between these to kind of give a little bit more pizzazz and add some more color to this box. But overall, it turned out really good. I'm super happy and can't wait to have blueberries in the years to come. Well, I hope you learned a little bit about how to plant blueberry bushes. I am certainly excited for mine, and I cannot wait to have fresh blueberries in a few weeks. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe and leave me a comment in the comment section below, and I'll see y'all again next time.